Welcome to the Nonprofit Exchange Podcast. Stories by leaders for leaders to help you raise the bar on your own excellence, to release the potential inside of you. Now, here's today's podcast. Welcome to the Nonprofit Exchange. This is Hugh Ballou, president and founder of CenterVision Leadership Foundation, where we work with leaders building synergy with a common vision. My co-host is David Dunworth, the president of the board of CenterVision Leadership Foundation. And our special guest today is Howard Levy. And Howard's going to talk about effective brand strategies for nonprofits. But Howard, before we do that, tell us a little bit about who you are, your experience, and why you do this work.
Sure. Very glad to be here, by the way. Appreciate it. And congratulations on over 400 episodes. Quite an accomplishment.
Thank you.
Yeah, I started the company Red Rooster Group to help nonprofits because I believe in nonprofits, really based on my values. In college, I think I always cared about things. And in college, I worked with a nonprofit organization called New York Public Interest Research Group. And it was basically an advocacy organization working on some good things, environmental issues like recycling, starting out in recycling in New York City a long time ago when the landfill was being closed. What are we going to do with all the garbage? And government reform to root out corruption. And so it was kind of old-fashioned activism, writing letters, putting a table outside on campus and getting people to write letters and showing up at City Hall and things like that, and then running workshops and getting involved that way. And so, I saw the need for small organizations to really have a voice in society. And, it's important. This sector is really kind of, well, when I started 30 years ago, there were about half as many nonprofits as there are now. I think about 800,000 now, depending on how you count, really, 1.6 million or so. Most of them are small. There's large brand names, as you've heard of March of Dimes and Salvation Army and Red Cross, those billion-dollar organizations, but most of them are under $1 million, and they are doing the lifeblood of society. And it's really important for them to continue to be able to do that, to have the awareness out in society, to get fundraising, to get some traction with leadership, with in politics. And advocacy issues, which many are not involved in, but to have a voice. And so that's why I started Red Rooster Group with the idea of wake up your brand, to help small organizations and medium-sized organizations really, have a voice. Because if you're not out there asking, if you're not at the table, you're not gonna get it. And that's important to your mission. That's the whole reason that you exist, is to be able to serve society well in some way.
And clarity in that, because a confused mind says no matter what you're asking. So we're talking about effective brand strategy. So I want to ask you why it's important for a nonprofit to have a strong brand. But as you're answering that, why don't you tell us what a brand is?
Yeah, I mean, ultimately, a brand is your reputation, and you can only control that so far as you make a promise, kind of brand promise. What's your mission? What are you doing? And how well are you doing that? And that's going to depend on how well you're actually communicating that in some way. And so when people talk about branding, they're usually talking about the communication part. How do we look? What's our logo? And what's our message? But the important part between that equation is really, what are we actually saying? What are we promising? What's our reason for being, and the mission and the vision there, and making sure that's aligned.